For 16 years, I've helped e-commerce brands make millions. But in September of 2022, I decided to start my own brand on the side. And since then, I've sold over $1 million worth of candles, all with Meta ads and email marketing. And here's exactly how I did it. So to break all this down, we're going to use my day zero strategy, which is basically the analysis I came up with after helping my clients make millions of dollars with their e-commerce brands. Okay. So unit economics is the first step behind the day zero strategy. What is unit economics? Basically, the finances, the numbers behind your brand. And the goal of figuring out the unit economics is to identify your maximum allowable CAC, or in other words, how much you can actually spend to acquire a customer, that's the entire game with meta advertising. Okay. Now, I'm selling candles. Candles are one unit, right? Just like candles, a regular candle. I'm charging $38 a unit plus shipping. So in total, customers are paying around $50 for a candle. Okay. With that, I'm getting about a 54% margin selling one candle at a time. Okay. Which leaves me with a 27%, a $27 contribution margin, or a $27 profit. Now, here's the problem. To acquire a customer with Meta, it costs me $40. That's unprofitable. If I'm spending $40 on Meta and that person who buys one candle, I'm losing money. Okay. So the reason why is this happening? The main hurdle in the candle business that I discovered, and in similar businesses is not just candles, is that candles are heavy, right? And heavy in e-commerce sucks because heavy equals expensive shipping. The more you have to spend, the more you have to charge for shipping, the worse it is for your margins. And in my situation, I have my manufacturer's also my 3PL. He makes my candles and then ships them out for me, and he charges me a pick and pack fee. He charges me $1.25 per pick and pack, per order, or not per order, per unit. Not great, but it's still good. It works for me, so I'm keeping going with it. But anyways, so it ends up costing about $12 ish to ship one unit after everything, after both the label and the pick and pack fee. For bundles, it ends up costing $15 to $20, depending if you're like in California or Washington or some other super far state from Alabama. It might be $25. Okay. But in generally, it's $15 to $20. Now, the next step is to look at your offer. Okay. The goal of the offer is to maximize your profitable send, or in other words, after your unit economics, you want to look at the offer. How can you make an offer that makes the unit economics work, essentially? And the goal for me for Wicked Warlock was to be first purchase profitable, or every time I acquire a new customer, I make a profit, essentially. So the goal to make that happen after I did all the math is that I need to sell basically 3 or more units as the median, right? In other words, most people who buy candles from me need to buy at least 3 candles, okay? So the way I did this, one of the main ways was through bundles. I figured out how can I incentivize people to buy more? And I just do 3 different bundle packs, okay? 10% off if you buy 3 candles or more, so $102, 61% landed margin, 71% contribution margin. Okay, 20% off 5 packs, $152, 60% margin, $102 contribution margin, and then 7 packs under 20% off, $212 total, $60 60% margin, $142 contribution margin. So when I did the math behind this and I ran ads to these bundles, what I figured out was my CAC was $60 to $75 every new customer. And when you did the math, obviously, with the 3 packs, 71% contribution margin, I'm profitable for most customers, not all customers, most customers. 5 packs, I'm still profitable on everyone. 7 packs, I'm profitable on everyone as well. So basically, I discovered there's 2 ways to win with the candles I was selling. One is to sell preset bundles like the ones I have above, but also to cross sell. If people come in for one candle, they're interested in one candle, how can I make sure that they buy multiple candles? This then leads to the funnel. Funnel is everything that is the whole customer journey, essentially. Now, the goal of your funnel is to maximize your ROI, make as much money as possible, essentially, and make a profit. Okay. Now, in my funnel, right now, it starts with advertising, meta ads, where I use UGC videos, UGC stills, AI static ads, video versions, iPhone product shots, and then I send them to a collections page. I used to send them to a landing page, and it works with the preset bundles, but now it works even better with a collections page, which is even easier, where I have all the products. I sort them by bestsellers. There's 30 plus individual candles. Right now I have like literally 60. By the end of 2026, I'll probably have near 100 cents, even though I won't sell them all. And yeah, and then preset bundle SKUs. Okay. And then the last page is the PDP. Once someone picks something on the collections page, they go to the PDP. There I have illustrated product images. They're easy to read ingredients. I have a slide out cart for the upsells, $200 free shipping threshold, which is super, super, super high, but it works. And then a banner with discount codes when needed if I have like a specific sale or something like Black Friday or whatever. The fourth step in the day zero strategy is now the creative. Okay. And the creative is the goal is to maximize your total addressable market, your TAM. Basically make sell as much as you can. A lot of people confuse creative as like the main way to reduce your cost, and that is you can do it, and you should try to reduce your acquisition costs with your ad creative. But the main goal of creative, especially on meta advertising, is volume. You're way better off trying to get 100,000 customers at a lower profit than to get 100 customers at a really high profit. Okay, especially in meta and e-commerce in general. And the way that I've been doing this with Wicked Warlock is with first is angles, okay, with concepts like wizards. Like obviously, I'm selling fantasy stuff, so stuff like Wizard's Tower, a tavern, Dwarven Mine, Witch's Cottage, all this stuff. They're built-in angles, and I make the candles specifically so I can have angles to advertise. And in the actual copy, in the actual creative of these ads, I'm using comparisons essentially to sell the candles. It smells like X and Y. It smells like X, sounds like Y. Make your home smell like X. Very, very, very simple stuff because it's candles. Like you either like the smell or you don't. So it's very simple for me. Now, here's actually an example of one ad. Actually, this is my best selling, best performing ad creative of all time on my ad account where I'm selling Wizard's Tower. I literally use an AI image that looks like the most AI possible image you could have made. I made this when ChatGPT was still relatively new. And then with the copy, like pipe smoke in an arcane library. When people saw this, they basically they reminded themselves of Gandalf in the Librarian Minas Tirith or something like that when he was trying to figure out, you know, if the One Ring was held by Isildur or something. So basically, I spent $76,000 on this one ad creative alone, and then I just made a bunch others for other products like that, and that's basically how I ran the ad account. And that was actually the most important part of the ad account, not the ad account structure, but the ad creative itself. And then last but not least is the timing. Timing is so important, especially in the candle business. Now, what is the goal of timing in this day zero strategy analysis thing? So timing basically dictates the demand, right? You can scale based on the demand. There's basically, long story short, with candles have an off season and an in season. Okay, the off season is January through August, so most of the year basically, and then AKA candle season, or the in season when people are actually out there buying candles, is September through December. 4 months of the year, with most of the revenue coming in actually November, December. Actually, when I discovered this, it actually changed the business completely for me. I learned that candles are extremely seasonal. It's basically like selling jackets during the winter or bikinis during the summer, right? There's 5x more revenue to be made in the season, in candle season, than in the off season, with the same exact ads, same exact products, same exact everything. The difference is just the people are looking to buy candles during during candle season and not during the off season. Period. End of story. Okay, and so I make 50% of my revenue during September and December, with 25% of all my revenue coming from November and December. And I'm actually underperforming here. It's actually very common for candle brands to make 30, 40, 50% of all their year's revenue in November and December. Okay, so knowing this timing stuff, that determines how you actually plan the business throughout the year, and also it keeps you less stressed when things are going bad, and also when to prepare, so how to do things, or so what to do when things are going to go well. So with all that said, here's the actual meta ad strategy I use for Wicked Warlock. Okay, basically during the off season, I would launch 20 plus new candles. right? That's a lot of new products because it's like ad creative. I need to have a lot of products so I can find a new winner. Just because I launch one candle doesn't mean people are gonna like it. So I try to launch as much as I can during the off season. And during the off season, I test for these winning scents and ads with Meta. I throw them up there in the Meta ads uh, platform, and I run ads and I figure out what sells. What do people want? What ads do they want? What candles do they want? And then I promote big bundles during candle season. And by big bundles, I don't mean like 3 packs. I've sold, honestly, people buy a lot more than 9 candles at a time, usually 12 plus candles during candle season, especially during Black Friday. And then I use a $60 cost cap or bid cap. I switch between the two, but around $60 cap for my acquisition cost. And then I use a $10,000 a day budget. Because with cost caps, you don't have to spend $10,000 a day. Basically, long story short, Meta finds you the volume it needs to find. Some days I'll only spend, $200, right? And other days I'll spend five, six, $7,000. It all depends on the time of the year and what I'm selling. But basically, long story short, I'm not losing money, right? Or I'm not spending too much crazy stuff. And then I have, on top of all that, I'm using monthly sales plus product launches with email, because I'm acquiring all these customers. I might as well try to make as much LTV as possible to make that happen. And as you can see here in the graph here, throughout the year, you can see the biggest spikes all happen during candle season. Okay. And all the lowest lows are happening during the off season. And then all the little mini spikes are usually like product launches in between there. So what were the results for Wicked Warlock in general? Basically, I've spent $372,633.08 in ad spend, and that generated $1 million and $1,019,501 and 13 cents in revenue. That is a 2.74 MER, or marketing efficiency ratio, which isn't amazing, but isn't bad either. It's whatever. It could be a lot better in a higher LTV subscription business. It should be better, but I ain't mad about it. This type of number gets better as the business grows. I've made about 8,500 orders. Every order on average, just based on Shopify, is about $104.61 AOV. This could be better, but whatever. And normally I have a 2.46% conversion rate and about 21.87% returning customer rate. And this is all based on Shopify stuff. Shopify's analytics is not the most best way to look at your analytics, but it gives you a decent idea to go to keep growing, especially when you're a smaller business like mine. Now, this is super important for all of you who are running candle brands or want to run candle brands or in fragrance in general. Long story short, do not copy me. Trust me, you're going to hate it if you try to copy Wicked Warlock and fantasy inspired fragrances and all that kind of stuff in general. Why? One is that it's heavy to ship, right? Especially candles in particular. It's just tougher for direct consumer. Like if you want to start your own Shopify store and you want to grow with Meta advertising and all this kind of stuff, it's just way harder to do it if you're selling something that's heavy or that's expensive to ship, or is either heavy or big. Candles are not big, but they are heavy relative to their price, so it just makes it harder, right? 2, benefit is invisible. In candles or any fragrance, like, smells hard to sell online, which is again, if you're trying to start your own Shopify store and make money, that's going to be difficult. To me, I didn't really care too much. I just wanted to sell something, so it's good. And fragrance can still sell online, okay, but it's definitely harder than if you sold something functional, something that was actually visible to see. Another is lifestyle, not function. Again, this is tougher for direct response, especially if you want to sell with Meta advertising. Anything that's lifestyle, like apparel, jewelry, all this kind of stuff, it's on the advertising side of things, it's harder than it is if you sell something like supplements or anything with like a functional benefit that it solves a specific problem. It's just how it is. It's because with advertising, you just tell people their problems and then solve the solution. It's just much easier when you sell functional products. Another is that it's relatively low LTV. It's better LTV than a durable good, right? Like a wallet or something like that, but it's still low LTV compared to much better LTV businesses like supplements. Okay, so you have to be first purchase profitable, which makes it a little bit more difficult compared to a subscription business, for example. Another thing is that candles are more like a sledgehammer scent, in that yes, you can do the scents yourself, which is what I do. I get fragrance oils, I put them together, and then I make formulations out of them. However, I am not a fine fragrance perfumer, and because of that, there's only so much you can do with those fragrances. Basically, you can do candles and reed diffusers, and maybe like one other thing, one other product category, which limits what you can actually do. And most of those are just like they're cannibalizing themselves if you do them all. So it's not great at all. You're basically gonna need perfumers if you want to do perfumes and multiple categories and all this kind of stuff. Now, the problem with that is that the IP is owned by perfumers, which gives you less control. It actually sucks pretty much. I'm gonna keep going with it anyways, and maybe even its own brand, but we'll see. But it's definitely not great compared to other businesses, other product categories. Another that it's extremely saturated, and so which makes it hard to stand out. Right, candles are like literally over 1,000 years old product category, so it's difficult. They're also extremely seasonal. Anytime you're in a seasonal, super seasonal business, there's goods and pros and cons behind to it, but it is riskier for sure to run, because if you mess up during the season that's supposed to do well, then you screwed yourself for the whole year. Okay. And last but not least, because I did fantasy in particular, it has extremely low TAM, which makes it impossible to scale. That's why it took basically 4 years now to grow from $0 to $1 million in total revenue, or about $500,000 a year in revenue that I have now. It's impossible because if I had a business where if I just sold to like 100% of all women, for example, I would have grown much faster and much bigger with the same exact effort and investment and everything else. So that's why you don't want to copy fantasy inspired candles or fantasy inspired fragrances in general. Is just a much difficult business than you'd imagine. So if I were to start a new candle brand from scratch in 2027, and this is how I would do it. First things first, you need a massive TAM, especially with meta advertising. Okay, if I'm starting a new candle brand, I'm going for 100% of women. I'm not doing fantasy. I'm not doing any of that stuff. I'm going for 100% of all women. Something hopefully not too generic, has a USP behind it, but the goal is something that any woman could possibly want, or anyone who likes candles could possibly want. Two, because candles are a lifestyle first business, I'm not going to fight that. Right? Might as well make it a lifestyle first business, not a direct response first business like I did. You still use direct response, but it's lifestyle first. All good. You go with what the category wants, and that's lifestyle. Three, invest big into the lifestyle creative. In other words, worry less about great copywriting, great advertising, great all this stuff, and instead invest into like videographers and photographers to get really great product pictures, models using your product and all kind of stuff. It just makes a world of a difference. You need to sell a world, and that's all visual. Okay. You want to invest into luxury packaging, so really great boxes. Mine, I don't even have boxes on my candles at all. So you want to invest into that. You want to be premium priced, but not luxury. I think $40 to $50 for a candle is pretty good. You want to engineer visuals into the product or the brand in general, so that when people look at your ads, it captures their eyes, and make it easier on yourself to run ads with candles. Because if not, it's going to be hard, because all you have is left to send. If you can engineer something visual into the ads, you're good, right? It makes things a lot easier. Another one, make behind the scenes content, which is core to the brand, especially in candles and anything handmade in general. If you're in a handmade category like candles, behind the scenes content, people love that stuff. And it would have to be core to the brand if I were to start a new candle brand again. Another is limit your SKU count as much as possible. I'm just pushing out SKUs, candles, and new scents for my business because I can, right? Basically, my manufacturer allows me to, and in a way that makes it still profitable for me. But normally, I would actually look for ways to reduce it. I'm not trying to sell 100 candles. You want to max out at like 20 or 30 candles max after a few years, right? You don't want to do what I do in that case. You still want to make direct to consumer, aka your Shopify store, your foundation. However, candles, because they are lifestyle, they are scent based, and they are heavy, they are still wholesale first business. In other words, get to your first million with direct consumer, but after that, you really want to go hard with wholesale. You want to get in actual stores, because that's really where you're going to find scale for your brand. And you want to build around candle season from the first day, which is, I didn't know. It took me 3 years to figure out the seasonality behind candles. If I just knew the seasonality behind candles, I would have gone just that alone. I would have done the same result in half the time. Okay, so build around candle season, which is September to December, and then last but not least, for your off season, right? You want to plan to expand to non-seasonal categories, because what's going to happen, because in season is candle season, right? September to December, that's when the sales do really well. That means January to August, you're gonna do really really badly, and you're gonna freaking hate it. It's gonna screw with your mind, and it's gonna be it's insane. But that doesn't mean you have to stay at just candles. You can go to other categories, and those other categories, if you do go to those other categories, you want to make stuff that sells from January through August. For example, fragrances, like fine fragrances like perfumes and colognes, they do a lot better January through August than at Candlewood, even though they're still a seasonal business themselves, right? So some other brands you can model after are stuff like Hotel Lobby. They are amazing at lifestyle. Brooklyn Candle Co. I think is another one, and Flamingo Estate is another great brand that does really great candle marketing, which is amazing. So yeah, this is how I made $1 million so far with Wicked Warlock, and how you can do the same.